I bought this Pokémon Emerald Game Boy Advance game for only $30 from a viewer named Jason, but that's because it's amazingly broken. Let's take a look. This Pokémon Emerald game might sell for up to $230 on eBay, so it's definitely worth fixing. The viewer that I bought it from someone on Mercari for $100, but he didn't know it was broken. So unfortunately, he got ripped off because he didn't know it looked like this inside. Oh boy, this one is quite the mess. This battery is barely holding on here. A bunch of the soldering on this chip is no good, and it looks like maybe even one of the legs have been torn off. This chip needs to be resoldered. This, I think that component's still there. It's kind of hard to tell. This needs to be resoldered. These guys look like they're barely there. I'm not sure about that. Let's look at the other side of this game cartridge. Okay, and we've got somebody tried to install a trace here, but it's not connected to anything, so that's not going to work very well. Got some solder here. Wow. It looks like, yeah, this was liquid damaged at one point. Okay, I think we need to get under a microscope and have a better look at this so we know what we're dealing with. So this looks like some of the worst part. This whole part of the board has just been torn off, and then they tried to run a wire from the battery over to these points here. This point, though, is not even soldered on, so I'm not sure the point of that. This looks pretty bad. We got one leg, two legs that are torn off, and actually it looks like this leg could be torn off as well. That could be bad, but I think maybe we'll be able to fix that. I'll have to take a look at that in a minute here. This soldering is just horrible. Same over here, really bad. This is very dry soldering, you can tell because of these peaks right here, this pointiness. And what do we have over here? More just really bad soldering. This component's like almost destroyed. I think they might have been soldering without using any flux at all. And even before they did all this work, it looks like this board has been liquid damaged. And this is the best soldering on this entire board. I think the first thing we need to do is remove this battery, take some of these chips off, and have a better look at the board. And then we can assess from there. Now I've got a soldering iron started up. We've got our air filtration turned on. Now we're ready to put on some flux. Flux will just help this solder flow nicely. And then we'll come through and start removing these chips. Like I said, we're just going to do the main chips. I don't think we need to do all of them at this point. But we'll see. We might need to by the end of this video. I'm first going to start just by desoldering this wire right here. I want to get this battery up first. There we go. Good enough. It's a big old blob of solder right here. Okay, there we go. Now we can see, oh man, that just looks so bad. I'm going to use my hot air soldering station to remove this chip, and then we'll get a look at the board. Also, I'm going to get some of this solder off. There's a ton right there. To do that, I'm just going to use a little bit of solder wick. And that will just wick up some of this excess solder. You can see it working its way up the braid. That's the point of solder wick. After all of that we took off, and there's still some here. Okay, that's better. Now I'm going to get my hot air soldering station started up and up to temperature. I'm going to add some flux onto this chip. And then we will remove the chip and see the condition of the chip and the condition of the board underneath. I don't have high hopes. It looks pretty bad so far. You've probably noticed me using iFixit tools in this video along with basically every other video I make. That's because I use them in pretty much every video I make. iFixit tools are some of the best precision tools out there, and they not only sell toolkits, they sell parts. In fact, there's a few manufacturers that are selling OEM parts through iFixit, like HP, Steam, and several others. So whenever you're looking for genuine OEM parts, go to ifixit.com first and see if they have what you need. If you already have the parts and tools you need and just need some help fixing your device, iFixit is still a great resource because they have a huge question and answer section that covers most devices, including cars and even clothes. And in addition, they have how-to repair guides as well as teardown guides for lots of devices. I'm gonna put a link to ifixit.com/TronicsFix right in the description that'll take you right there. And very surprisingly, the pads on the board itself actually don't look that bad. I think these are actually all probably usable. Now the chip itself though, we're gonna have some issues with. So clearly we have one issue right there. That's a broken pin. These are all bridged, that's fine, we can fix that. The other issue is on this side. We've got two more broken pins. There's not much there to work with, but I think I might be able to tack a wire onto these. If I can't do that, I should be able to sand this down a little bit and get a little more exposed on these pins. And once these pins are exposed a little more, then I could for sure solder onto that. But I might be able to do it just on this. We need to clean this board up a little bit better so we can see what exactly is going on with all this liquid damage and if that's something we need to repair first before we worry about all these other things. I think I will remove this other chip as well right here, just so we can have a look under that. And I'll probably also remove this chip too, so we can look under that, just so we have a better idea what's going on this board. Let's remove those and then we'll inspect it more and create a plan. So we've done a little bit of cleaning on the board, but we need to do some more cleaning on these holes here and get any of this corrosion out, and then do some testing and make sure that these circuit traces are good in here. Looks like most of the issues with liquid is down here, or corrosion. As we move up the board there, it looks like there's less of it. Not really any of it actually, so that's good. I do want to scrape some of this off where I can see there's been corrosion underneath, just to make sure that, you know, all the corrosion has been removed and there's no damage on the copper. Then we can come through with some conformal coating and coat that again to make sure the copper doesn't start corroding. Now on the back side, we've got quite a bit of corrosion too. All mostly looks okay as far as the integrity of the circuits, but we need to inspect all of this kind of stuff to make sure there's not a break in these circuit traces here. I always feel bad when I get this stuff from people who were ripped off, like on eBay or Mercari or wherever, Facebook Marketplace, because it's so easy for sellers to just say, oh yeah, it works fine, practically brand new, and then to just ship it out. Now a lot of places, I'm not clear on why the seller didn't go to Mercari and get his money back, but there's some reason that didn't work, and so he had it and wanted to send it in to me to see what I could do. So if you guys ever have good stories like that, just contact me on my website, TronicsFix.com. I'm always looking for a good story. So anytime, you know, if you've been ripped off, or you know, a repair shop tried to fix it but couldn't, or you know, Sony tried to fix it but couldn't, anything like that usually ends up being an interesting story. So if you have stuff like that, especially on interesting electronics, then contact me on my website and maybe we can work something out so I can make a video about it. Now we have this board pretty clean and we've gotten a bunch of the corrosion scraped off. So what I'm going to do now is test each of these pins right here and make sure that there is continuity from the pin to the corresponding pin or pad or circuit trace over here. That'll just make sure that those connections and circuit traces are all good. So right here, we're gonna go from here over to here. Oh, this is gonna be easier if we just make it beep. Beeps, okay, good. This one we don't have a corresponding pad anywhere on the board, at least on this side. So here we're gonna go up right there. Good. What I'm doing here is checking to make sure that there is continuity from here over to here, and there is. This little spot right here that looks a little bit dark, if there was a break right there, then my meter would not beep. Good there, good there, good there. Okay, so I'm gonna go through and check the rest of these off camera. If I find one that has a problem, then we'll film how to fix it. Okay, and we've got it pretty clean and most of the corrosion removed. So I think we're good to start rebuilding this board. So one of the things we need to do is fix stuff like this. All this solder is just all over this capacitor. I'm gonna need to go through and check each of these pads and reapply solder onto each of these pads. I'm gonna need to reinstall this capacitor. There's a capacitor that was attached to here and then over to here, but this copper pad has just been totally worn away. So I'm going to install the capacitor on this side and then see if it can reach over here, and if not, I'll install a jumper over here. We need to redo all of this soldering. This actually doesn't look too bad. And then after that, we can install this chip and then deal with the broken legs on that chip. That's probably going to be one of the most difficult parts of this. So we'll save that part till last. Let's get to redoing some of these components and some of this solder. So the problem with this guy is that on the very end of it, there should be metal on the end, and that metal's just been torn off. So all we're left with is kind of the internal part of the resistor. And unfortunately, there's just not enough there for me to solder to. So I'm gonna see if I can get a good enough connection to see what this is rated at. 0.8 ohms, okay. I'm gonna look around and see if I have one that's maybe a little bit longer even, and then we'll replace that. We'll replace this resistor with that resistor. Okay, and I did not find an exact resistor that matches that, but I did find a fuse on a PlayStation 5. So it is significantly smaller, but hopefully it'll work anyway. It's rated the same. So there we go. And I mean, I would assume that a fuse and a resistor kind of have some different characteristics that may be important, but I also think it'll work just fine. So we'll find out. Okay, now that is installed. That's actually really solid. So now what I'm going to do is go through and fix these joints, all of these joints, and all of these joints. I went ahead and knocked a resistor off while I was going there, so let's try and get it put back on the board. There we go. Oh, almost. Not quite. Sometimes with the larger iron, it's hard to get the tip right where you need it. To get the heat on there you need. Let's try the small one. This one, we can get right in there, right where we want it. Okay, good. Good. There we go, that's not going anywhere. Okay, and now we have all that done. It's time to reinstall the chips. Okay, there's one. We've still got two, we still got one on this side and one on this side. Now this one is probably gonna be the hardest one. There's just a little nub sticking out there. So we gotta see if we can get anything soldered to that or not. Let's get some more flux over here. There we go. Let's get all the coating off of this wire. So we're gonna go down here like this. Okay, that's kind of what we need, but then we need to make sure that the top part is actually soldered to the pin up here. Is that? Okay. And we got it. Well, that was easy. Now we need to get the battery soldered on. So I just finished with the game. That one resistor that I replaced, it actually was supposed to be a capacitor, so I did fix that problem. Now let's start it up and see if this game works. Oh, we got a Nintendo logo, that's good news. Come on! Yeah! Everything looks great. That was a difficult fix. If you like this type of video and you want to see one where I tried to fix 9 broken Pokemon Game Boy games, I'll put a link for that video up on your screen now so you can come hang out with me over there and see if I can fix those. Don't forget to go to ifixit.com/TronicsFix if you need parts, tools, or just help trying to fix your device. Thanks again for watching today, and I hope you have a good one.